everyone. I am Shimelis. Welcome to History with Shime video learning channel. Today's lesson is about Grade 12 History Unit 1 Part 2 about the Industrial Revolution. Before the topic, dear students, don't forget to subscribe, like and share this channel. The Industrial Revolution first took place in Britain in the period from 1750 to 1850. Why in Great Britain? Because there are different prerequisites in Britain which are very important for the beginning of industry. The first one was coal, iron, water, and manpower. These are the most important prerequisites for the beginning of industry in Great Britain. By 1850, Britain was a mature industrial state. Its major industries and its transport system had been transformed by machinery and power steam. The industrial capitalists owned the factory and built machinery in the factory. The workers in the factory owned only their labor power, which they sold to the factory owner for money wages. By 1850, the factory system was dominant in major industries in Britain, especially the cotton textile. This was the first industrial beginning in Great Britain, cotton industry. Machines in factories replaced or complemented work done by hand with human strength and skill. This is what we call the Industrial Revolution, means the replacement of manpower by different machines. The new machines in factories and elsewhere employed inanimate power. Inanimate power from water and from wind has been used since the Middle Ages. However, as the economy expanded and when industry needed a form of power greater than water could provide and more flexible than water power, a new form of power came from burning coal, which in Britain was cheap and abundant, and it was one of the prerequisites for the beginning of industry in Great Britain. The first commercially viable steam engine was constructed by Newcomen around 1705 to 1709, but it could not be used. It could be used for pumps chiefly in mining. So the first steam engine, its purpose was to pump out water from mining area. The second more developed steam engine was developed by James Watt. James Watt in 1783 to 1784 made a steam engine which was more powerful and more economical in its use of fuel and adapted to operate machinery in factories. From 1780s, more and more factories adopted steam power. For example, steam power was also applied to transport in the form of railways. The first modern railway was operated entirely by steam locomotives and carried passengers as well as freight. The first railway transport, of course, occurred from Liverpool to Manchester Railway, connected all places in Britain. The second topic is about political and social economic consequences of the Industrial Revolution. Before the topic, still my student, don't forget to subscribe, like and share this channel. Political and socio-economic consequences of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution brought many consequences. For example, one of the first economic consequences could be the cheap mass production, one of the features of the Industrial Revolution. The main problem in the industrial states was overproduction and selling the commodities produced. So this problem created what we call economic depression. During this period, one of the causes for the outbreak of economic depression was overproduction. But before this period, there was economic depression. It was caused by different factors. But this period, one of the major factors for the beginning of economic depression was mass production or cheap production. The Industrial Revolution made the agricultural sector of advanced countries less dominant. But before the Industrial Revolution, agricultural sector was more dominant. But after the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, this sector means agricultural sector began to decline and it was replaced by industry. Agricultural productivity has increased in advanced countries because of the spread of better methods of agriculture. One of the results of the Industrial Revolution was the increment of agricultural productivity because they used what we call the modern methods of agriculture, using technological skills like using better seeds, machines like tractor, and pesticides. So this increased the productivity of agriculture in the industrialized state. The Industrial Revolution accelerated the shift from countryside to the towns and cities. So this was also another very important result of the Industrial Revolution. It accelerated people to migrate from countryside to the urban areas in order to search works. More productive agriculture could feed this larger urban population. So the increment of agricultural productivity, it feed population of the urban areas. Population expanded rapidly in Britain and other industrialized countries of the West. As a result of Industrial Revolution, two classes were emerged. The first class was the bourgeoisie class, and it became more numerous and richer. The second class is the proletariat class, means the working class. So these are the two classes which appeared after the Industrial Revolution. The first one was the bourgeoisie class, which had their industry, and whereas the second class is the workers or industrial proletariat, means the working class. The working class were more and more concentrated in towns and cities. So because the factories were available in towns and cities. Industrialization increased national wealth through along with was very unevenly distributed. Means in the industrialization increased what we call wealth, but this wealth is unevenly distributed. The growth of industry and the expansion of Western economy in general meant that Western states became more interested in non-Western areas of the world than before as a source of raw materials and markets for export or potential market. This means, in one way or in another way, the beginning of industrialization and capitalism it leads to colonization. Why? Because the industrialized nations need different things, for example, raw materials, marketplaces, in order to run their industry. This directly led to what we call the colonialism, the colonial era. The result of all these changes was imperialism, means expansion of territories in the late 19th century, that is, expanding and accelerating drive for colonial acquisition and sphere of influence. So industrialization, it leads to colonization. Why? They need raw materials for their newly opened industry, and of course they needed market in order to sell their cheap production. That's a very important point. Now it's better to look some aspects of nationalism, the other very minor topic. Before the topic, dear students, still don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this channel. About nationalism, nationalism has been the most powerful political forces since 1850s in the Western world. Nationalism's deepest roots lie in the shared sense of regional cultural identity, especially as those roots are expressed in customs, language, and religion. It influenced all classes, but more so the urban than the rural peasants. Factors promoted the growth of nationalism in the 19th century. These are the very important factors which increased the sense of nationalism. One of the first factor was the beginning of compulsory primary education. Uh, this state building, inculcating patriotism and loyalty to the state and ruler. So, one of the major essence of opening compulsory primary education was to increase the sense of patriotism and loyalty to the state as well as their rulers. The second factor which increased the sense of nationalism was the cheap newspaper which promote chauvinistic tones. Of course, it was not very interesting because nationalism, when it reached to climax, chauvinistic tones may increase for the domination of other states. Anyways, the existence of cheap newspapers of the period, it increased the chauvinistic tones or sense of nationalism, extreme nationalism. The second factor is the existence, the then period of literature of the period were strongly nationalists. Uh, Patriotic societies were created, and this patriotic society began to inculcate patriotism. And this group need for the development, for the strengthening of their military. So this is one of the major factor even for the beginning of the First World War. In the coming period, we are going to look in its broad senses. So today I am winding up my lesson. Still, my student, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this channel. Bye bye.